going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. You know who it is by now,
Jimothy.
So ladies and gents, it has been a while and you will thank the lucky stars I have put Mathmech down for the time being. The deck is definitely still playable, but with the upcoming format, I just really wanted to test some new decks going forward. And I've just arrived at locals. I'm actually early for once, which is amazing. And I'm actually going to play Labrynth. Now, ladies and gents, misplays incoming. I have not tested this deck at all. I've literally thrown it together. I'm still waiting on a few cards for the deck, and the deck is by no way complete. My extra deck's just fully janky. Like, the main deck's just full of just like random stuff, but it is locals. It's a little bit more relaxed today because obviously everybody was preparing for UK Nationals, which happened on the previous weekend gone, sorry. So I'm assuming that people are either going to be testing new cards to the new format or playing the same deck that they played at Nationals. So it's going to be interesting to see. But nevertheless, we're here. We've got Labrynth. We're just untested whatsoever, but we're gonna try and do some stuff. So hopefully I can get some decent games just to show you guys, and just basically just see how I get on with the deck and see whether I can vibe with it or not. So I will definitely catch you on the next one, ladies and gents. Peace. So coming into round one, ladies and gents, and I'm playing against Swordsoul, Tenyi Swordsoul at that. This deck probably never going to go away. It's always going to be a strong tier 2, maybe even tier 1.5, depending on the format. But yeah, I played against Swordsoul, lost the die roll, went second. I think I went second twice and I managed to win. Nibiru just absolutely just shut down his board. I actually resolved Nibiru twice, mainly due to the effect of Big Welcome Labrynth. So I nibbed him on his first turn. Then I got to a board state where I set a couple of cards and I bounced the Nibiru back to my own hand with Big Welcome Labrynth effect to special summon one from deck, which was absolutely crazy. And he actually forgot about it, so he did recover from the Nibiru, but then decided to go into the Tenyi Link 2 player. Can't remember her name off the top of my head, but yeah, when he did that, tried to get to battle phase, and then I decided to nib again, which just ended on a fat token, and he just burns through so many resources, ladies and gents. But I did do a few misplays, in fact quite a few misplays, like the effect that removes a card from the field via a trap effect does trigger all my Labrynth spells, sorry, Labrynth monsters, which I just was not resolving. So a couple of times with Big Welcome, I could have I did bounce a monster and I did not resolve the graveyard effect to add the monsters back to hand or special summon them to the field, which was a little bit annoying on my part, just because it's a little bit of an oversight from me. But bear in mind, this was the first time I played the deck, did not know what was going on, but managed to take this one 2-0, mainly because I outgrinded my opponent. Now, I am playing a version with less of the flood trap, so I do have skill drain, but it was in the side. I decided not to side it in because I just wanted to see what the deck could do without skill drain. I do understand that skill drain is probably a way stronger option and it will close out a lot more games just because of the way that the nature of the deck and how the deck works, but I decided to just play it without skill drain, and it was thoroughly enjoyable because you do have to think about each and every interaction and how you're gonna obviously outfox your opponent. But nonetheless, ladies and gents, managed to win round one, which was lucky on my part. So yeah, straight into the next one. Okay, coming into round two, ladies and gents, playing against branded Despia, and from what I've been told, this is probably one of Labrynth's more difficult matchups just because of the nature of how branded Despia works. And one thing that I noticed playing this match out, I was playing against Fabs, by the way, and spoiler alert, he actually went on to go and win the tournament, which was really good. It was a shorter tournament than usual. There's only a few players, so we only had 3 rounds. But what I noticed is the deck is short of a little bit of negation, and that might be a little bit of lack of foresight with me and knowledge of the deck, because I let him, Fabs, just go all the way until he resolved Lubellion to make a Dragoon, and that was it, ladies and gents. Now I do play Ice Dragon's Prison to out the Dragoon, but Lubellion actually shuffled back the Dark Magician from the banished zone or the graveyard, wherever it was, so I couldn't actually resolve Ice Dragon Prison to get rid of the Dragoon anyway. Which was just a bit of a tall order, and then he was just popping and burning, and there wasn't really much I could do to combat him doing what he was doing, basically. So I lost game 1. Game 2 kind of ended a similar fashion. He didn't have the best of hands, but I didn't see any hand traps, and I think he top decked Harpy's Feather Duster, which was a bit of a problem because it meant that I had to just resolve my back row way earlier than I wanted to, basically. So I was kind of like forced into a situation where I had to kind of like play early, which meant that all my cards were out, basically all my interactions, my pops, my big welcomes, they were all out of the back row basically and into the graveyard. So I ended up just getting ground out basically and just beaten down. And that's one thing with branded Despia, they just put huge monsters on board, so even if I do flip skill drain, which the deck ultimately loses to, I still potentially would have lost if he managed to make some fusion plays. Even if he just got a Guardian Chimera on the board, for example, it might have been a bit of a problem. But nevertheless, it was a bit of a learning curve. I missed so many like interactions, some of my monsters being bounced back to the hand, welcome Labrynth setting itself back from the graveyard, just loads of things that I missed basically just because of my lack of experience from the deck. But nonetheless, it was a learning experience. Took a swift 2-0, big L on that round, and yeah, on to the next one. Okay, ladies and gents, third and final game, and I'm up against Tenyi Swordsoul yet again. Played 2 Swordsoul today, which was absolutely crazy. But anyway, I don't think my opponent knew the Labrynth matchup as well as he might have liked, because he let a lot of effects go before he started to interact when I was playing out my initial turn. But that happens from time to time, especially when you got newer players in the game. They're not as familiar with some of the decks in the meta as everybody else is. But nevertheless, I managed to just get to a board state where I could clear his Baron. And once you get rolling with the spells and, well, sorry, with your traps and your lovely and your lady Labrynth, it's really difficult to kind of like lose advantage because you recur so much, especially with the furniture stuff coming out of the graveyard and then just being bodies on field to then obviously proc other effects. It can be a bit of a problem. So game 1, I managed to win. I just outgrinded him. I got to a state where I just had like lady on field and she was just like hitting for 3k. She's absolutely huge. Game 2, he did not respect Nibiru. Again, Nibiru is a funny card. When people stop respecting it, that's when it's the most impactful, and that's exactly what happened. So he decided to play out his turn, game 2, and he just played straight into Nibiru, and then obviously Nibiru came down and just put him at such a disadvantage. And I think the interaction between Big Welcome as well and Nibiru is just an interesting one. Bouncing in Nibiru back to hand to ultimately be another threat if your opponent decides to try and build a board again is a bit of a problem, especially on the follow-up, because typically you don't end with too many monsters on field. But yeah, Nibiru is definitely a threat going forward. But anyway, ladies and gents, let me know if I made any misplays or any plays that were a little bit questionable. Again, this was like my 3rd game in a row that I'd played this deck, and I was like missing so many effects. It was crazy. I had things that in graveyard that could have jumped out, and yeah, it was what it was. But anyway, managed to take this game 2-0, finishing with a record of X1, which was quite respectable considering I've never played the deck before. So yeah, on to the next one. Okay, ladies and gents, so we are back. End of locals. I managed to bag 2nd place playing Labrynth. It was a little bit of a smaller locals today, to be honest. There was a few people. I think people are just kind of like having a bit of a rest because of Nats on the weekend. So I assume that people are just getting their decks together ready for the new format and obviously the new ban list. But managed to bag 2nd. Shout out to Fabs who went first. I actually lost to Fabs, and that was my only loss. He was playing branded, which is just a horrible matchup in of itself. A couple of things that I learned about the deck. I'll leave my matchups and result on the screen just here for you guys. But a couple of things I learned about the deck. The deck needs a little bit more negation. Just going forward, there was a few things that I wish I could have stopped that I didn't stop, basically. Just like effects like the Luba, for example. Like, I didn't have an imperm. The only interaction that I had was a pop, and he managed to just get all the way to obviously resolving his branded fusion and then making a Dragoon, which is a really difficult thing to out in Labrynth. I did main deck the Ice Dragon's Prison for that very scenario, but he shuffled the Dark Magician back into deck, so I literally couldn't out his Dragoon, and it couldn't be destroyed, and it was probably going to get really beefy. So that was a bit of a problem. There was nothing I could do to be able to like out it, and I think I just played that matchup wrong. I don't know if I did anything that I shouldn't have done, and I think that's one of the ones that I'll feature or I have featured depending on what I edit in this video. But all in all, Labrynth is a very strong deck. Obviously I'm new to the deck, so there's quite a few effects that I've been missing, but I don't know whether the furniture build or the trap build is better. It's hard to say at the moment, so I probably need to mess about with both just to really see which one's better. But all in all, good day. It's good to be back at locals. Hopefully when I make my next locals, I'll try Labrynth again, all being well, if I don't have a little bit of a brainwave and decide to play another deck. But yeah, it went well. Well, anyway, ladies and gents, we have arrived at the end of another video. As always, if you do like this content, you know what to do by now. Hit that like button, share, subscribe, all of that beautiful good stuff, and I will definitely see you guys in the next video. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.